Hello, I'm Jermaine. Welcome to our basic lighting setup for any event. We're going to go over all the things you need for setup for a lighting event.
Okay, go.
These are the things we're going to need to set up a basic lighting setup. Our trussing, base plates, truss toppers, wash lights, zoom intel lights, up lighting, our wire bin, which contains all of our tools, and our lighting controller. First thing we're going to do is clear our workspace and determine where we're going to set up our lighting.
Okay.
Now that we've determined where we're placing our lights, next we have to check out power and amperage. We should always make sure with this amount of lights we use one full 20 amp circuit that can power up to 6 lights. We're only doing 4 lights in the controller, so we're more than fine with just one 20 amp circuit. Now we're going to place our base plates and determine where they go. First thing we're going to do is lay out our base plates approximately where we think our lights are going to go. The spacing I like to have depends on the room, but since we have a lot of spacing in this particular room, we're going to do about 2 to 4 feet apart for each truss. Pro tip, in a lot of the venues that we deal with, they have very nice floors. In order to protect the floors and so that we don't damage them, we use a backing underneath the truss so that way it not only stabilizes the truss but protects the floors. Now I'm laying out 4 pieces of carpet squares before I lay out my truss. You'll see they're a little bit bigger than the truss, but that's okay. In the perfect world, you have 1 piece of carpet that's exactly the size of the truss base plate, but for this purposes of this video, we're going to use these 4 squares. Now that I've laid out my 4 squares, and I need to move my base plate, I'm grabbing 1 pin so I can lift it up like so, using that as an anchor point. Now I'm going to center my base plate on top of the carpet. Now that we have it positioned correctly, now we can place our trussing. I'm going to grab our truss. Each truss has 4 holes on the bottom where the nubs for the base plates go into. We're going to line up these nubs with our base plates. Inside of our green wire bins, you'll find truss pins and hammers, truss socks, extension cables, as well as DMX lighting cables to connect your lights. The first thing we're going to need is the truss pins. Now that I have my trussing, before I put it in, I'm just lining up my truss pins to make sure they're in the correct position. Lining up my truss pins in the correct position, I'm pointing it towards the center piece because once the trussing goes down, it's going to block the hole and the pin won't go all the way through. Making sure all my nubbies are pointing towards the center. Now I can place my truss. Now I'm placing my pins inside and pushing them in so they go all the way through. Placing my pins, pushing them all the way through. Now that they're all the way through, I'm going to grab safety pins. This here is a safety pin. This is what we're going to use to secure the pins inside the truss to the base plate. Grab the pin and slide it through like that. And now our truss is nice and secure. As you notice, I have them lying down sideways. You should never leave a truss standing straight up because it can tip over, fall, and damage the floor at the client's place. Now that our first truss is secured, we're going to repeat this with the other 3 trussing. Now that our truss is all set up, I'm going to make sure that each one gets a truss topper so that we can put the lights on. And additionally, another tip, the truss toppers make the socks easier to go on over. I'm going to secure each one to the top with 2 pins. I'm going to secure my truss toppers to the truss with 2 pins. I'm going to put them on a diagonal. So if I put it on this side here, I'm going to go around to the opposite side and put the truss pin and secure the top that way. And we're going to repeat that for every single truss. Make sure that we have nice, secure truss toppers. Now we have our 4 truss totems set up and we're ready to place the socks on them before we place our lights. Inside of our toolbox, each one of these is going to be a truss sock. Truss sock, again, is just a covering that we use to cover the truss to make it look more elegant. So I open one, I'm going to take one out, open it up like so, and put it over the top. Once it's over the top, we're going to pull down a little bit at a time, until we get it completely over the top of the truss. And we're not pulling too hard because sometimes it gets caught and we don't want to rip them. So we're carefully pulling over the top, and this is why I put the truss toppers on, because it's easier. Sometimes it will get caught if you only have the bare truss on the top. Sometimes it will get caught and create a hole in your truss sock. Now my truss sock is on. I'm going to pull it down a little bit so that I have room to work and run my wires up and down. I'm going to repeat this for every single truss that we're about to do. Now that I have all my socks in place, now's the time to move my truss in the final position before I place any lights on top of it. Why am I moving it now? Because once the lights are on top, I don't want it to move so the lights will fall off. Because of symmetry, we're going to want to line them all up evenly. So I'm going to make sure they're all in a straight line. I'm going to go back away from my setup. I'm going to take a wide view look at it, see how it looks, and say to yourself, you know what, maybe this doesn't look right this way. Maybe I'll tighten it up a little bit. So we're going to tighten this one side up a little bit. But because I moved this and I want it to be symmetrical, I'm going to move this one the same distance on this side to make it nice and even. Now it's time to begin to place our lights. For today's setup, we have 4 truss and we're going to place 1 light on each truss. Our lights typically come in sets of 2. Our Intel wash zooms and our basic wash lights. What we're going to do is we're going to put 1 wash, 1 zoom, 1 wash so that the lights are symmetrical. So these are our Intel zooms. These are our wash lights. They don't have any patterns, but they're used to wash color into the room. I'm going to put one of these on this side of the DJ, the other one on this side of the DJ, and I'm going to put it in the same position on both sides so that way they're symmetrical. This I'm going to put on the inside on this truss, and this one I'll put on this side on this truss, so that way we're equal distance from each other. Tip, if you need help with where to position the lights, if you look inside of our lighting controller, we're going to open the case to our lighting controller, and inside the top of our lighting controller is our basic lighting setups. So you'll see here, today we're doing the 4 light setup for number 1, 2 zoom and 2 wash lights. So this is how we're going to set it up. Our DJ is going to be in the middle, the arrow facing the dance floor going this way. So I'm going to put the zoom on the furthest truss, a wash on the inside truss here, a wash on this inside truss, and a zoom on the outside truss. It also works if I had all zoom lights, if I have 6 lights, and if I have different aura lights. Now it is time to begin to place my lights. I'm going to take 1 zoom out of the zoom case. I'm going to put it on the outermost truss. If you see on the lights, they have 2 sides. The back side of your light has all the power and the DMX connections. The front side has a screen. This is the side that should be facing out towards the audience. If you're too short, always have a stepladder or a friend, but grab 2 hands. Now we're putting our light up. Now that our light is on top of our truss totem, we have to make sure that it's secure so that people are safe, and just in case it falls, it won't hurt anyone. To do that, we're going to use these metal safety cables. To secure it to the truss, I'm going to put it through this handle like so first. Then I'm going to clip it to itself like this. I'm going to go down through the top like so, pull it through. I'm going to go through the other handle like this, and then clip it to itself. Now our light is secure, and in case it tips, it won't hurt anyone. I'm going to take my second light, and I'm going to place it in the same position on the opposite side. Again, this is the front of the light with the screen. The back of the light has all the power and DMX connections. Now that my zoom lights are up, I'm going to place my wash lights. Although these lights are different, screen is in the front, power and data connections are on the back. Inside each case are all the power cables needed to connect the lights. You have 2 types of cables in each case. PowerCon to IEC, which plugs directly into the power on the wall, and we also provide a jumper cable in case the lights are 2 on a truss. So that way you can just jump the power from this one to this one if they were right next to each other. Now that my lights are up, it's time to plug them in. So I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to match this blue end to the blue on the back of the light, stick it in, twist like so. I'm going to take the end of my cable, I'm going to stick it inside of my truss and pull it down so that way it looks nice and neat. And pull that wire in like so. I'm going to repeat that for all 4 of my lights. Again, I'm going to take the blue end like so, match it to the blue end on the back of the light. We want these lights placed closer to the front so we can get a good viewing angle from the lights. Again, now that my power is connected, I'm going to put it inside the truss, pull it down like so, and repeat that for all 4 lights. Now it's time to run power to the wall. Inside each bin is going to be all the power cables you need to hook up your lights. So I need 4 power cables. Because our lights don't take a lot of power and you can put more than one on a circuit, in this bin there are going to be a couple of these 3-way plugs so you can tie the lights together. How you tie the lights together is your decision, but use as little cables as possible to get the run done. Now we go over to our lights. After we determine where our power is, we take the first cable, start from the bottom of the truss, go inside, then up to connect it to our light. We don't want to connect it just to our lights like that because in case it gets pulled on. So what I like to do is I'll run the extension cable up, I'll loop it around and make a simple little tie right there and then tie it in. So that way it's nice and secure in case someone trips on it and it doesn't come out and there's no tension on the light. Now that I have my 2 lights together, what I'll do is I'm going to jump them together using a 3-way plug. So I'm going to plug this light in here, this light in here, then I'm going to take this, plug it into the wall. Once you plug it in, you'll see your lights will start to zero and center themselves. That's just them doing a self-test, and that way you know the lights are on and they're starting to move before they go into their home position. I went back into the controller case to grab my cheat sheet, because now that we have our lights set up, we're going to make sure that our addresses are correct. What is an address? Every light has an individual address that tells the controller where it is so it knows what to do. And you'll see on our cheat sheet we have zoom, we have a zoom, which is our first light, then a wash, then we have another wash, and then a zoom. Our first zoom is 153, our wash is 30, our next wash is 1, and our next zoom is 107. So let's go to our lights and make sure that our addresses are correct. Right now the screen is off, but you can tell the light is on because the light is red. I'm going to press the menu button to turn it on. 153. This address is already correct. If it wasn't correct, I would use the up or down button to change the address and then hit enter to lock it in. This one should be 30. So we're going to do the same thing. These buttons are a little different, but it's the same kind of layout. Press menu, 30. 30 matches, so we know this light is correct and in the correct position. If you see on the second row, 89 corresponds to if we're using 4 of the zoom lights. Because we're only using 2 zoom lights, we need to match that address to the 107 on top. So what I'm going to do is hit the menu button, then go up until I get to 107. Then I'm going to press enter to lock it in, and it's going to turn yellow again. Now all my addresses are correct. Time to hook up my lights with the data cables and wire it up to the controller. We use a wolf mix to control our lights that comes in this case with 2 of them. Main one and one for the backup. I'm going to open my case. See, we have two Wolf Mix controllers. What you want to do is determine a good place to put your controller. Typically, we go next to the DJ. I'm going to pretend there's a DJ right there. Now I'm standing behind it. Inside each case, two Wolf Mix controllers. Each case is going to have two Wolf Mixes. One is the main one, and then one is the backup. Short DMX cable, 2 or 3 power cables for the actual Wolf Mix, and a backup power block. Since we're only using one Wolf Mix, actually we're going to leave it in the case. First thing, we need power. The Wolf Mix uses printer cables or regular USB cables for power. This is our power cable. Regular USB on one end, printer USB on the other end.
Hold them right.
This one is going to go into the back of our Wolf Mix, and this one is going to go into our power brick. I'm going to match this to where it says USB and insert here, like so. I'm going to take the other end of the cable and either insert it into this brick or into the USB distribution hub. Since we're only using one Wolf Mix today, I'm going to plug it into this power brick. Now we need to run a power cable for a power strip. Okay. Our lights don't use that much power. I'm going to just run a jumper cable into the three-way that our lights are already in. I call these jumper cables, but they're just regular power cables that we use to plug in. And here's where I get the jump part. I jump it off another power source, but they're really just power cables. I'm going to go ahead and plug that into the three-way of our lights because it doesn't take that much power. Now I'm going to turn on my power strip. So this one controller can control all the lights, including the up lights. So now that we have it plugged up, let's power it on and see what happens. Now that's the main boot screen for the Wolf Mix. We have to load a project up because a project wasn't loaded into this. Now that it's on, we're going to load up a project. See what it says here, load project? We're going to press load project. We're going to go to open. See different projects in here? We're going to select the one with the latest date. There's one that says 11/23/24 and one that says 11/25/24. We're going to select the latest one, which is Heart to Heart 11/25/24, and then we're going to press open. It's going to wait a second for it to load up. And now our project is all loaded up. Now you're looking at the main screen. You'll see it has zoom, platinum 5R, wash, and LEDs. Zooms are our zoom intels, wash are our wash lights, LEDs are our up lights. If you look on the back, this is where we insert our DMX cables. It has 4 DMX ports, 2 5-pin and 2 3-pin ports. They all output the same universe, so it doesn't matter which one you use. For our purposes, our lights are 3-pin, so we're going to use either D or B to connect when connecting our lights. DMX and DMX programming can be extremely complicating and frustrating, but luckily for you guys, we've have really simplified, so it's basically just plug and play. The only thing you need to remember is we need to run a cable and we need to hook all 4 lights into a cable line. Now that we have our controller out and set up, we need to link all of our lights together on one line. What I mean by that is, this is going to be my last light, so I'm going to go out from this light, down the truss, across the floor, up into this light. I'm going to go into this light, then out from this light, down the truss, across the floor, then up into this light. Then we're going to go out of this light, down the truss, across the floor, then up into this light. Then I'm going to go out of this light, down the truss, across the floor, back this way, and into one of these 2 ports on the back of my Wolf Mix. What we need now are some DMX cables to link our lights together. DMX cables are in this green bin, and they're going to be separate from the XLR cables, even though they look just like the XLR cable. How can you tell the difference? It has green tape on each wire, and they also come from the green bin, so that way you don't mix them up with the audio cables. Now I'm going to take my first cable to my last light, and I'm going to go over to the light, make sure I get the right end. And if you look on the back of the light where it says DMX in, DMX cable has 2 ends. You'll see the inside is going to be this side. The output is going to be this. DMX cable has 2 ends. We call them male and female. On the back of the light has male and female. The input is going to be male. The cable matches female. So what I'm going to do is take this end now and run it up the back of the truss the same way I did the power and place it inside the input of the light. I want to come out the top of the truss so that way it's nice and neat. I'm going to take this end, match the 3 holes up to the pins, place it in the light, and make sure I hear it click. Now this first light is ready. I'm going to take this end of the cable, I'm going to go across to this truss, nice and neat. Then I'm going to take this end, snake it through the bottom of the truss like so. We're going to go into the DMX output. Now we're going to plug our lights up, and if everything is correct and we did it correctly, our light should turn on. And our lights turn on because we plugged in everything correctly, and now we can start to operate our lights for our event. Now we have the basic operation of our wolf mix. Everything is pretty much laid out in the presets. On this side, we have our home button, which is going to get you to our main home screen. At the bottom, we have the dimmers, which shows you how bright each one is. You can individually turn up and turn down the brightness of the light. You'll see each column corresponds to a group, which corresponds to a light. So this is zooms. So A is going to control both of my zoom lights. C is going to control both of my wash lights. When I turn down the zimmer on C, you'll see that my wash lights start to go up and down. Now if you look, group C corresponds to our wash lights. When I turn down the dimmer on our wash lights, they start to go up and down. I can do the same thing with group A, which our zoom lights are on. They go up and they go down, on and off with the dimmer. There's also a blackout button for a quick way to black out the lights. Okay. And I'll turn your lights on and off, on, off. And it'll tell you on the screen whether they're on and off. Now, basic operation for this is really simple. From the home screen that we're in, we're just going to hit the preset button, and you'll see that we have multiple presets. Static stage, white center, we also have dance ones. So we have basically a preset for any type of party or any part of the party, whether it's dancing, whether it's speeches, whether it's a horror for bar mitzvahs. We have every preset for basically anything you need the lights to do. Party's over, we're wrapping up. Now it's time for the breakdown. First thing we're going to do is pack up our controller. I do that first by turning off the controller. The controller doesn't have an on and off switch. It gets turned off by simply plugging it out. Now that our controller's off, I'm going to unhook the cables, and I'm just going to basically go in reverse order of how I set up the lights. So I'm going to take my DMX cables, go back to my first one, plug them all out, pull them out from inside the truss, and make sure they get wrapped correctly. Wrapping is in another entire video. There's several different schools of wrapping, but they should just always be wrapped properly so that way you can reach into the case, pull it out, and be able to use it. And for this cable, I go this way. I hold it like this in a loop, twist, turn, turn. Some people do over, under, over. You can do a whole video on just cable wrapping. These cables clicked in, but now how do we get them out? On this one, you'll see there's a little silver tab. Press the tab in and pull out. On this one, there's a tab actually connected to the light. We're going to push that one in and then pull it out. So that way the cable can drop down the truss. To remove the blue PowerCon cable, we simply pull the silver tab back, turn, and pull out. When taking down the lights, you need to be very careful so they don't drop. If you're too short, get someone taller to help you or grab a step ladder. In my case, I'm going to grab a step ladder. Other important thing is make sure you bring your cases out and you're ready to go straight from the truss into the case. That way that minimizes the chance of the lights getting damaged by hanging out around the venue. Go right to the handles, like so. Grab it off. And come down carefully. In this case, these lights go in the case upside down. We need to be very careful because these are lights and they do have a big glass lens on them. So I'm going to take it, flip it upside down, place it in the case. I'm going to turn it so that the handles are in the right position and gently lay it down like that. I'm going to take the power cable, disconnect it from the extension cord, wrap it like so, and it goes in the middle of the case in the place to hold the wires. I'm then gonna move over to my next light. You're saying, why did I skip that light? Because I have this case and I wanna take them down in a set and make sure that the lights are safe. So I'm gonna do one set at a time rather than going back and forth from different lights. Very important to take the cables out before you take the lights down, because if you try to take the light down with the cable still plugged in, you're gonna have a very big problem and you might drop the light. Now my cable is wrapped, put it inside the case. I'm gonna make sure I have 2 of these in each case and 1 power jumper. Flip it upside down, gently place it in the case. And I'm gonna twist it like this, so that way it fits into the case nice and snug. And when I'm not gonna close my case until I know that I have my power cables, everything's in it. Now I can close my case. This case is ready to go back on the truck. Okay. We unplugged it from the controller, but the light is still gonna be on because some lights, they keep the last instruction that they got from the controller. So the last instruction they got from the controller was white, so that's why it's still on white, and because I haven't plugged it out yet. So again, I'm gonna make sure we disconnect the wires first before removing the light. This is how we pack up our controller case. We're gonna disconnect our power cord from extension cord, wrap it like so, unplug the cable in the back, make sure the wires are all wrapped neatly inside of it and tucked. See, I'm wrapping my wires nice and neatly, tucking them in the side. So we're gonna make sure each one has at least 2 USB cables, 1 short DMX cable, power strip, power brick, and a USB hub. Now that I know I have everything inside my case, tuck my wires, grab the top. Make sure you put your cheat card back inside. It goes in the top. It has Velcro, so it can be Velcroed right to the top. Make sure it's snapped. Our controller is now ready to go. Now for our last 2, we're gonna repeat the same thing we did before. We unplugged our cables. We're gonna grab our light. We'll grab this light. We're gonna hold it on the sides like so. This light is actually pretty light, so we won't have that much problems with it. In this case, these lights go face up. So we're gonna put it in the case like so. And again, they all have glass lenses, so make sure that you're being really careful with the lights when they go inside. My jumper wire, go on top like so. Make sure I have a power cable. This gets wrapped and placed on top like so. And move over to our last and final light. Slowly place it in the case like so. Double check that I have all my wires. This case is now ready to go back on the truck. For training purposes, we're gonna keep the socks like this for the entire video, but let me show you what it looks like when it's fully set up and ready for go. Remember, there's gonna be wires inside of here. I'm gonna take this end of the sock, I'm gonna pull it up like so. Over here like this. On all 4 ends, just make sure it goes over the lip, like that. Now that's nice and neat. Then we're gonna take this end, pull it down, pull it down, pull it down. And the goal for this is to make sure it looks nice and neat. We don't want to have it bunched up like that in the middle, so I'm gonna pull this down. These socks could be any color, but we typically do black or white. Okay. Now that we're ready to break down our truss, I got our back. Now that I've removed the pins, I'm gonna remove it from the base. And before I lay it down, I'm gonna bring my sock all the way down so I can grab it off. All the way down. And I'm gonna lay it down like so. The socks must be removed from the truss. They cannot go back on the truck because they will get dirty and damaged. Very important that you take each sock and fold it up exactly the way it came in the bag. So I'm gonna take my sock, fold it nice and neatly. It's ready to go back inside the bag, like so. Each sock gets its own bag, 1 sock per bag. This one was a simple setup. They gradually get more complicated, but once you master this, the rest of them will be quite easy.